Hey everyone. In XCOM 2 there's a Steam achievement called Who Needs Tigan? The player obtains this achievement by completing the final mission of the game without any upgraded gear. So no improved armor or weapons, that kind of thing. And honestly, it's not too difficult an achievement to get. Just take 5 psionic operatives and 1 specialist to heal, plus you've got the commander's avatar. Yeah, you can win this fight without too much trouble. So I had a thought. What would happen if we took the Who Needs Tigan concept and applied it to the entire game? What if the only research that we complete are the mandatory ones that are required to progress the game's story? Just how difficult a challenge would this pose? So really quick, the rules are as follows. We're playing on Commander difficulty. We're playing under Honest Man rules, so we only reload in the events of misclicks, glitches, and other such nonsense. And of course, we can only complete mandatory research projects. So then the obvious question, what research projects are actually required to beat the game? Alien biotech leads to the officer autopsy, which gives us the Proving Ground facility. The Proving Ground is required to get the Skulljack, so we have to do that. Then there's Resistance Communications, that's required to reach new regions. New regions house story missions, so we have to be able to contact those. So that's another one we have to do. And finally, Alien Encryption allows construction of the Shadow Chamber. And obviously all the Shadow Chamber projects are required to progress, so they're fair game as well. And that's it. Yeah, nothing else is actually needed. At least not theoretically. So let's consider the list of things we're not going to have access to. Improved guns and weapons, improved armor, including things like war suits, blue screen rounds, mimic beacons, weapon mods on our guns, alien ruler weapons and armor, chosen weapons, plasma grenades, psi operatives. All of these things are unavailable to us. In fact, so many things are unavailable that it might be easier to cover the tools we do have access to. The biggest thing is our barracks. We can use whatever soldier classes we like, and that's going to be a refreshing change for me when playing this game. We will be able to build the training center, you don't need any research for that. That means we can give our troops as many skills as we can afford. It also means we're going to have access to maximum level bonds. And speaking of soldiers, I've decided to start at the Reaper HQ. We should be able to obtain 2 hero units from the starting faction, and I think Reapers, with Banish and potential access to Shred as an extra ability, I think they're going to be by far the best hero class to have. Even though we can't use things like scopes, we do have the Resistance Ring to improve our soldiers' attributes through Covert Ops. That being said, any breakthrough research from Covert Ops are banned as well. They're still research, like it's in the name, and it feels like it's within the spirit of the run to not use them. Also, I am allowing the base Proving Ground projects to be used. Tigan is only needed for researching the facility itself, and like I said, we have to do that to beat the game. But the projects inside the Proving Ground are all handled by Shen's team, so we can use those. And that gives us access to some really useful tools, including special grenades, special ammo, and even sparks. We can also build the default items that Shen has available at the start of the game. Those are the flashbang, the medikit, and the smoke bomb. We can also use the Tactical Legacy Pack weapons, which come equipped with some pre-installed weapon mods. They're going to be the only weapon mods we can use the whole run. And finally, we can use all of the benefits of the GTS. There's no research required for that. Now as we start the run, I'm thinking the early game is going to remain pretty similar to a regular campaign. The lack of technology is going to become more noticeable as the game progresses. The enemies will become much stronger, and the question is whether our troops with standard gear will be able to keep up. We head out to the first haven defense, and you can see I'm bringing 2 grenadiers. I've been training up a plethora of grenadiers in the GTS as I'm thinking they're going to be the best class for the run. Not only are they one of our few options to shred, they're also one of the only classes that can get armor points via blast padding. And yeah, here's me wanting to use blast padding. But even better than all that, these guys have the ability to carry 2 utility items. Since we can't upgrade armor, most of our other units are going to be restricted to 1. So with our grenadiers, we can potentially use heavy ordnance for 2 uses of a grenade, plus we can give them something like special ammunition on top. Combine that with chain shot and buffing their aim via covert ops, and I'm thinking these guys could be really powerful even without any upgraded equipment. In other news, I'm really hoping we don't get the Assassin as our first chosen. Without being able to upgrade our armor, I'm thinking her hidden katana attack will pretty much be one-shotting us the entire game. If things go to plan, the only time we're going to see her is when we attack her base. At least that's what I'm hoping. So here comes the chosen, and it's the Warlock, no Assassin. Excellent. And honestly, this guy's probably the best one to get since he doesn't focus on direct damage. So I'm thinking we got a bit lucky here. Now, he has Watchful and Low Profile, and they're both pretty bad abilities for him to have. His weaknesses are Brittle and Reapers. And to be honest, he does end up being pretty obnoxious on this mission. It's just the usual XCOM shenanigans. He runs out to us at the same turn that a trooper and priest also patrol into us. The pod system is just going out the window in record time. We gotta deal with all these guys at once. So we use Peng, our Reaper, to recover Drifter from a daze attack, and he actually remains in concealment as he does this. Now I didn't expect that, but it's a nice surprise, and I'll try to remember it for future runs. We have Tarek, the specialist, who can remove the Warlock's Overwatch with Combat Protocol. Like I said, it's really nice being able to use multiple different classes. Then our Grenadier Jonas misses an 88% shot on the Trooper. And because of that, we actually eliminate 0 enemies this turn. So it could certainly be going better. On the enemy turn, Jonas is put into stasis by the priest. And I'm expecting a mind control from the Skullet Man to render half our team out of action. But surprisingly, the Warlock is pretty inoffensive, and he just randomly teleports the Trooper. I'm not sure why he decided to be so gentle here, but we're not looking a gift horse in the mouth. We'll go with it. Now Tarek eliminates the Trooper. Finally, we've taken out one of the enemies, and it was honestly pretty easy because the Warlock teleported this guy right into our lines. Like, we were easily able to surround and flank him. The Warlock pretty much set this dude up to be executed. Maybe old Skullet Man was mad at him because the Trooper targeted a civilian on its turn instead of any XCOM soldiers? I don't know. Anyway, we use the shrapnel bomb on the priest, but of course it's not going to do enough damage to finish him. And now the mind control comes. So Jonas is out, but Drifter is no longer disoriented from the daze, so we still have 3 healthy soldiers. And that's much better than 2. Peng targets the priest, but sadly it's sustain triggers. And this priest is really slowing us down. And because we're not going to finish the Warlock this turn, he's just got way too much health, I instead choose to flashbang Jonas with Drifter. If Jonas were to grenade any of our soldiers, we are up on a roof, so we're going to take fall damage. It's probably going to be a one-shot, and that would be horrific, so we need to keep this man weakened until he's back on our side. The enemy turn is a little bit bonkers. Both the priest and the warlock go after civilians. They are being super aggressive against our defenseless friends, but really not so much with us. Jonas just repositions. He doesn't actually attack at all. And so it's really good that we've avoided taking damage here, but on the flip side, if we lose too many civilians, the mission will result in a failure. So we really want to start eliminating these bad guys. We start by using a grenade on the priest, but Twitch chat points out this was a misplay. Drifter's TLP gun has a stock, so we could have just shot and downed the priest that way. But at the very least, it's gone, that's the main thing. And we've also inflicted enough damage on the Warlock that he retreats into his safety bubble. The really good thing about him doing this is that it ends the mind control on Jonas. So we remove the spectral unit, and that causes the talky one to leave the safety bubble, and then we're just going to rush forward to flank him. We want to set ourselves up so that no matter where this guy runs to, we have an easy shot on him. On his turn, he finally summons in a trooper as backup. I'm not sure why he didn't do this earlier, maybe because the priest was still active, the game wanted to limit the number of units we were engaging, I'm not sure. But it doesn't matter too much, the trooper is an easy one-shot and then we're back to ganging up on the Warlock. Once he's surrounded and no matter where he goes we can get a flank, it's pretty straightforward taking him down. Even when he enters Overwatch, Pang can run up to him with concealment and land the finishing blow. Reapers are a great counter to that Overwatch ability, so I'm happy that we started with them. Things are really going in our favour. However, we do also want to contact the other factions, and with the skirmishers we score the weak points resistance order. This gives our shredding attacks +1 to their shred damage. This is going to be super helpful once we start encountering heavily armoured units. This is quite possibly the single best resistance order for this particular challenge. Things are really working out for us here. I'm kind of growing suspicious it's not meant to go this well. We have a supply run next, but before that, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, me. Yeah, I've recently started a Let's Play channel. I've been doing a Gears Tactics playthrough and it's been really fun. I'm looking at playing other turn-based games and maybe some RPGs on the channel. I'd love if you could check it out and give me a sub if you like what you see. The link is in the description. Thanks. Alright, back to XCOM. This particular supply raid has the high explosive sitrep. Pang with remote start is an absolute savage here. We use the Claymore on the first pod, one-shotting everything, while keeping the entire team concealed. And check this out, the captain's body gets thrown into the ocean. It's such a cool little detail. I love this game. And I should say, we've taken the ability that improves Pang's Claymore, so it's now doing 8 damage instead of 5, and that's a really nice power boost for us. However, what's even better than that is using Remote Start. It does 12 damage. So we also one-shot the second pod while still keeping the entire team concealed. And this is honestly ridiculous. We are just eviscerating these guys. We attempt the trifecta on the final pod, but Advent seems to have wisened up to our shenanigans, and they won't patrol close enough to any explosive objects for the whole pod to be hit. Instead, I go for a bit of a riskier strategy and take aim at the Purifier with our sharpshooter Bozo. Now the plan requires a couple of things to go right. Bozo has to roll either max damage or a crit, and the Purifier's explosion chance needs to proc. And sure enough, we get both and we blow up the third pod as well. Now the other units do tank the hit, so it's not a one-shot, but we're in position to flank them. We take out the Lancer with a regular gunshot, and it turns out he's the one with the loot. Despite blowing up basically every other enemy on the map, we manage to avoid detonating the one guy with the loot, and so we get to keep it. This was pretty much the perfect mission. Pang is just too good. On the strategic layer, we have a scanning site to reduce the intel cost of contacting the next region. I'm gonna go for these whenever they show up because we don't have access to building radio towers. You need to research that. So that means the intel costs of contacting new regions as we proceed throughout the game is gonna become ridiculously high. Intel is a very valuable resource for this run. Now up next is the usual council mission where mechs start showing up. We're bringing 4 Grenadiers and a Templar, so I'm thinking those mechs shouldn't be much of a problem for us. And sure enough, the first pod of a Viper and mech gets absolutely annihilated. The second pod is a Priest, Lancer, and Purifier. We bomb both the Lancer and Priest, but of course, sustain triggers on the Priest, so it survives. Now it's only got 1 HP left, and it decides to use Holy Warrior on the Purifier, basically guaranteeing the Purifier's elimination on the next turn. This guy's like, if these XCOM goons are gonna take me out, I'm making sure you go down with me. Really poor teamwork on Advent's part here. Now our Templar Roberti uses parry to block the Purifier's flamethrower, so that's all well and good, but sometimes these things set the ground on fire too, so I don't really want to move her since that could trigger the burn status. Instead, we'll just leave Roberti where she is, and Glass Cannon can just grenade the Priest. Yes, parry does work against the flamethrower. I didn't realise they could blow up from Holy Warrior! We didn't bring a medikit! No! Oh dear! Oh no! Oh, there was no reason for that to happen. Yeah, for some reason I didn't think the Purifier would explode from death by Holy Warrior, but turns out it can. From a logical perspective, I don't think there's any reason that being Shadow Realmed via Holy Warrior would detonate the Purifier's fuel tank. That doesn't really make sense to me. But from a gameplay perspective, the devs probably just didn't program a check for that particular type of elimination. It's probably a pretty niche scenario. So as far as the game's concerned, it's no different from just shooting the Purifier. Hence the explosion. But what can you do? Lesson learned. Now sadly we didn't bring a medikit. I think the guy who has it was on a covert op and I didn't want to spend the money building a second one. So I just decided to go without. If we did have one, we could stabilize her and keep our Templar alive. Sadly, as it is, she bleeds out right on the same turn the evac zone spawns. So she's just gone. And she had both Fortress and Blade Storm as extra abilities, so she could have been hugely powerful. Losing such a valuable asset was both incredibly annoying, but also absolutely hilarious. This entire situation was totally preventable, but I just completely messed it up. Farewell, Roberti. I'll miss you. We have a guerrilla op where the Warlock actually returns, but this time it goes really well. We've got Pang's OP Claymore and remote start skills. Plus, without the Priest's backup, the Warlock is not nearly as threatening. It's much easier to focus on him and get rid of him quickly. We've also picked up Talon rounds and a gas grenade as a scanning reward, so those things definitely come in useful as well. And yeah, easy victory on the Warlock here. Let's hope they all go like this. But then after the mission, I do something pretty unusual for me. There's another scanning reward, this time an extra guerrilla op. Now I usually avoid these things like the plague. Playing extra missions not only messes with managing our soldiers' will points, it also makes the run take more time. But here I decide to go for it because it's extra XP and some supplies as rewards. Now given how much we're going to be leaning into our soldiers' skills, I figure the faster we level up the better. Skills are by far the best thing we have working in our favour, so more XP is a really good thing to have. Now it turns out doing this mission was a horrible mistake. Valkyria manages to miss an 83% shot on this mech, and then Polar follows up by hitting the shot but rolling minimum damage. And between these two things, the mech lives and it bombards us with missiles. Then another pod activates and we're just getting swarmed with enemies. So I opt to just eliminate the commander to stop the dark event, and then we're going to evac everyone out. And here I'm definitely noticing a difference in difficulty between missions that have Pang and those that don't. Our Reaper's explosive abilities are going a really long way carrying us, And here, where we have a skirmisher instead, he's just not nearly as useful. So I think this one's actually the first failed mission of the run. And we need a comeback after that, so I decide we're going to hit the Blacksite. It's only going to become more difficult as time goes on and Advent deploys stronger and stronger units, so the sooner the better. Initially, I was waiting for the spark that we're building to finish, but it's still 5 days away. I think that's too long. We'll probably have another mission by then, so let's just do this thing with our available troops right now. It's going to be Peng, Tarek, and 3 Grenadiers. Advent are deploying mutons by now who are bulky enough to survive a claymore. However, I believe if a purifier is taken out by explosive damage, it's guaranteed to detonate. So the claymore plus the purifier's explosion are enough to instantly murk a muton. The power of double explosions. We leave the bulk of the squad atop the building while Peng sets out to scout the area. The cars and forklifts we can remote start, but sadly the next pod just isn't patrolling close enough to any of these objects. So we end up activating them with an Overwatch ambush instead. Now this is still pretty good, and having Peng being able to stay in concealment, it gives us so much control over how we activate pods. It is proving extremely helpful, and just Peng in general is making things so much easier. We get some better luck with the pod at the rear of the main structure as they do indeed patrol into an explosive object. I mean, check out the explosion radius on this thing. It's kind of hard not to patrol into it. And so what would normally be a really difficult pod of a mech, purifier, and muton is instead just an instant one-shot. It's just crazy how much damage this Reaper is doing. So then the Warlock appears, and I try blowing up the wall to remove his cover, but all this does is create some weird line of sight issue where we apparently cannot see him through a ladder. Not really sure what that's about, but the problem is easily solved by just blowing up the ladder. Yeah, there's no problem explosions can't solve here. Now Peng can once again sneak up on our foe and just annihilates him with a ridiculous 15 damage crit. That's the power of combining both the Brittle and Reaper weakness that Lord Skullet has rolled. So once again, an easy victory against this guy. The evac zone is a bit of a distance from the vial. I run Tarek and the Grenadiers closer to the evac so they can escape as soon as the reinforcements arrive. I then plan to pick up the objective with Peng and place him back into shadow. That way he can safely run to the evac even if it takes a couple of turns. However, turns out when he's carrying an objective, our boy cannot go back into concealment. Now I had a suspicion this was the case, I just couldn't quite remember, so as a backup plan we can just place the team on Overwatch. That way they can fire at the reinforcements as they land, and they can miss 3 out of 4 shots. Cool, that's really helpful. We then have Malorian, Jonas and Glass Cannon all take approximately 85% shots at the mech, and Jonas is the only one who can hit. Yeah, 85% and we get 1 out of 3. That's XCOM, baby. Now I could evac these guys out this turn, but I don't want the remaining captain attacking Peng just because these idiots can't hit the side of a barn. So the Grenadiers are staying in place and they're going to draw the captain's fire. Sure enough, Jonas, the one guy who actually landed his attack, is the one to get hit. There truly is no justice in this world, is there? Nonetheless, everyone survives and we're able to escape. That allows us to research alien encryption, so Tygan finally has something to do again. Meanwhile, we are able to recruit a replacement Templar, and check this out. Petrova here not only has Bladestorm and Fortress, she also has Reaper and Shadowstep, so she's even better than Roberti. Really all she needs is Sustain, and then I think she'd be perfect. But as is, I'm actually happy that we lost our earlier Templar. We've kind of upgraded to a better one here. I'll try not to get her sent to the Shadow Realm as well. We then have a loot crate mission, and the difficulty is certainly starting to ramp up. Peng isn't available here, and on top of that, the enemies are spawning with bigger health pools, while our tier 1 guns are still doing the same amount of damage. Relatively, our damage output is actually going down. This makes eliminating enemies more time consuming, and so I decide to deliberately use some explosives to call in more lost. I'm hoping the captain targets them instead of us. Normally that's what the AI goes for, targeting the easiest enemy to hit. Since the Lost can't use cover, well, provided that we're not flanked, the zombie boys will always be the juicier target. Wait, did I say always? No, not always. The captain decides to randomly one-shot our boy Bozo. This was so out of left field, like I was looking at Twitch chat when it happened. I wasn't even paying attention because I thought we were safe. So this was pretty obnoxious, but I don't think there was much I could have done to prevent it. I mean, you can see our troops trying to eliminate the captain. They're just absolutely terrible at it. It's just all dodges or misses. Probably keeping Bozo in full cover instead of half cover is, I think, the only thing that I could have done differently. But either way, we're gonna need a new sharpshooter now. And so compare that cringe mission to the very next one where we have both Pang and Petrova. We begin by skulljacking a captain to summon in our first codex. Pang one-shots the Purifier with remote start, so just like that, one less enemy to deal with. But before we used remote start, I made sure to throw our Claymore down on top of the codex. That allows us to throw a grenade for a double explosion. Now, if the grenade does max damage, we'll one-shot the codex, which of course it doesn't, but it's still a pretty good outcome. A codex on only 1 HP will not produce a clone, so even though we haven't finished it, we at least don't have a second one to deal with. And then Combat Protocol can easily take the codex down even after it teleports. But even that's not enough. Petrova then rolls max damage on the shield bearer to score the elimination. So this first pod has been absolutely massacred. But make no mistake, our team is just getting started here. The Warlock's here and has the ability to summon mechs now. Usually that would be really bad, but both the Talkie Boy and his robot assistant have taken up position near a car. Now with Pang on the battlefield, you do not want to stand near a car. And once again, we sneak up on them and we get that amazing remote start damage. It's enough to one-shot the mech. We then focus the rest of the team's attacks on the Warlock until he's down to only 8 HP. Now Drifter's been dazed by Mind Scorch and his chance to hit is 31%. Terrible odds, but he does have the stock, so I figure doing 1 damage is still worth it. Well, instead of doing 1 damage, our boy lands the attack for an 8 damage crit and just ends the exchange then and there. I was honestly in disbelief. We just destroyed the Warlock and his mech like it was nothing. The final pod is 2 Vipers and a Spectre. I figure as long as we can eliminate the Vipers, the Spectre should just go for a clone and not do any actual damage. So I'm not too worried, but yet again the team overachieves and eliminates all 3 enemies in 1 turn. This is like night and day versus the previous mission. This team is making it look easy. We soon have a Haven defense mission, and it's the first outing in the Hunter's territory, so that means he's going to be here. Now his strengths are pretty bad: Beastmaster, immune to melee, and regeneration. Regeneration in particular has been really annoying in some of the previous runs that we've done. But honestly, I'm not too concerned. It's his weaknesses that I'm much more interested in. Now, he's weak to skirmishes, but more importantly than that, he has the shell-shocked weakness. Yeah, shell-shocked. In a run where I'm prioritizing a Reaper and Grenadiers, we are gonna blow this man into smithereens long before he can regenerate any HP. Once again, Pang comes in clutch, being able to scout the Hunter's position. We can then throw down a Claymore and detonate it with a rocket from our new Spark, Julian. Even through a point of armor, this double explosion leaves the Hunter on a single point of HP. He has been absolutely destroyed. And one last grenade from Jonas can finish him off. Now, the Hunter could be a problem if he lands a rifle shot on us. It has the potential to one-shot with the built-in bleed damage, but as long as Pang allows us to start the exchange on our terms, I'm thinking that we should be good. Explosions aren't always the answer though. Like in this mission, we use Julian's rocket, and sure, it obliterates the pod, that's really nice, but it also sets the truck housing the VIP on fire. The vehicle detonates before we can reach the door to extract the VIP, and they get caught in the blast. Now, it's quite a shame. We would have gotten about 90 intel for winning this mission, and we desperately need that to contact new regions. If only the VIP had been one tile over, they would have survived the explosion. A bit of a setback, but nothing that we can't overcome. And overall, we are getting pretty lucky on the strategic layer with covert ops to reduce the avatar progress. As long as we can keep doing those, we're not really in any rush to finish the game, so I'm not panicking just yet. It's at about this time that I'm hit with a similar thought from previously. If we can hit the Forge mission before Andromedon starts spawning, that's probably going to make it much easier. We have one Grenadier with chain shot, and I was honestly hoping to have a couple more before we did this one, but I'm thinking that those bulky boys will start appearing soon, so we're going to risk the deployment here and now. Now, Tarek has actually picked up chain shot as a hidden ability, but of course he doesn't shred armor, so it's not quite as good on him, but it's still much better than nothing. We encounter the first pod and get absurdly lucky. Not only do the Advent goons move close enough to a car to cop a remote start, the priest doesn't trigger sustain. That means both enemies are immediately one-shot and the whole team is still in concealment. It is perfect. Then it's time for the sector pod. We have a few things working for us here. One, Malorian has the holo targeting ability. So with pretty much every engagement, he's probably going to be the one we attack with first. And he shreds 2 points of armor if he hits, thanks to the weak points resistance order. After that, Julian with overdrive can then shred the rest of this thing's armor, and I've also bonded Glass Cannon and Malorian. That means Malorian can attack again in the same turn with an extra action. And Tarek and Cannon both having chain shot finishes our hulking foe off. We have destroyed the sector pod, and we still had Petrova and Pang up our sleeves. They didn't have to do anything, so this was pretty dominant here. And I'm thinking the sector pod is probably going to be the most difficult part of the mission. The Hunter is basically a joke with that shell-shocked weakness. We just lob 2 claymores on him and then detonate them with a grenade. This setup strips the edgy boy of 100% of his HP just like that. So yeah, a pretty easy deployment here. I think doing it early really paid off. That ends up being in stark contrast to the very next mission. This run really is ups and downs, I tell ya. Of course, we sent most of our best units to the Forge, so the troops that we're sending now are a bit lower level, seeing as the other guys are tired. And we get the always amazing XCOM scenario of 3 pods patrolling into us at once. Now, we have the location scout sitrep on this one, so this isn't me just badly positioning the troops and getting multiple enemy activations. No, we stayed pretty much in the same spot. From the moment that we spawned on the mission, these 3 pods just started making a beeline for us. We could see them doing it every turn. And this leads to us losing our second spark, Party Pooper. This was literally the first mission that we've used him on, and he gets murked because the pod system kinda sucks. And Elerium cores are in short supply. Wasting 2 of them like that on a unit that we can no longer use is just brutal. Even worse is the fact that he went down to 2 shots from disoriented mutons. I had used a flashbang on him, but it did not help at all. What does help, however, is this Ranger, Notchild. I've given him some Talon rounds and he rolls multiple big damage crits to help us carve through the enemies. We do end up surviving without any further losses, but losing the spark like that really sucks. I'm thinking going forward, our limited Elerium cores should be used for special ammo, that might be a better approach than Sparks. Those Talon rounds were a lot more useful than Party Pooper, and even if someone with special ammo does get Shadow Realmed, as long as we can recover their body, we get to keep the ammo. So I think that's a better approach. Back on the strategic layer, I met with a nice surprise. The intel cost of contacting new regions seems to max out at 200. So that's going to make managing intel much easier. A very welcome development here. Now, while this region houses the Psionic Gate mission, I don't actually want to do that just yet. One, because I don't really have an answer for the buried chrysalids, and two, because if we go there, it'll mean activating the assassin. I do not want to do that until we're ready to hunt down her base and eliminate her immediately. She's just too much of a threat on the battlefield. Her katana could easily one-shot any of our human soldiers. So I start making contact with the region, but I make sure not to finish contacting it. That way, it's there if we do need to hit the Psionic Gate to reduce avatar progress in an emergency, but we also don't have to worry about the forehead lady until we really need to. In the meantime, I actually think a better approach for the Avatar project is to bring in the first Avatar. Now the problem is, once again, the Hunter is here. Now I don't want to have to fight him and an Avatar at the same time, so we'll deal with the Avatar in the usual way by lobbing some explosives in his direction and annihilating him in a single attack. Now there is a pod of 3 codexes, and that gives us plenty of opportunity to use the Skulljack. However, it's also plenty of opportunity for the enemies to clone. So before we attack any of these guys, we're going to use a flashbang to get the disorientation that's going to prevent any cloning. After that, we focus on eliminating 2 of the bad guys, leaving 1 standing that we can use the Skulljack on. And we're going to do that on the next turn so that we have more or less an entire turn just to battle the Avatar. Of course, that does mean the codex we're going to leave alive gets to attack on its turn, but we can easily bait that attack with Petrova's parry and we take 0 damage. Now that it's our turn again, let's use the Skulljack and get that Avatar in here. Now at this point, both our lack of damage output and our lack of scopes to buff our aim become a bit of a problem. It's hard to hit this thing, and even when we do, we're not doing that much damage. Now we do have dragon rounds by this point, so we can set the Avatar on fire. I thought this disabled its teleportation ability, but apparently not. It does shut down things like mind control though, and while that may sound good, it means that this enemy has no option on its turn other than firing its gun. And our man Recrafted gets 1 shot. We had just picked up this guy from the black market, now that we're able to spend more intel since we don't need as much for contacting regions. And just like Party Pooper before him, the dude goes down on his very first mission. Now thankfully he's only in bleed out, and since this isn't a solo class run, we have a specialist that can stabilize him. Now we could also revive him and bring him back into the fight, but if we do that he's going to have a very small amount of HP. While he's unconscious, the Avatar will not target him for any attacks, so he's actually safer if we just leave him KO'd on the ground. It's going to be up to the rest of the team to finish the enemy off. Sure enough, we get lucky with the teleportation and it moves very close to Peng, so our Reaper can flank this thing and he takes it down. That's going to keep the Avatar project off our back a while longer, and our Sharpshooter Recrafted survives to tell the tale. So a good victory here, this one went in our favour. Let's keep the momentum going by heading to the Warlock's base to finish him off for good. Now by this point we've acquired a second Reaper. He's not high enough level to have Banish yet, and that is a shame, but I'm thinking an extra Claymore should come in really useful all the same. Now we're met with a bit of a problem with the very first pod. It consists of 3 Spectres and an Andromedon. Now not only are Andromedons horribly bulky for our tier 1 weapons, but our Dragon and Venom rounds are totally useless against these mechanized enemies. So our damage output is just horrible. I figure out pretty early into the piece that we're not going to be able to take down the Andromedon this turn. It's just got too much health and we're not doing enough damage. Instead, I'm going to opt to remove some of the Spectres. Since they have less HP and armor, they're easier to get rid of. And the more enemies that we take down, the less attacks we're going to have to deal with on the enemy turn. Of course, that leaves the question, what are we going to do about the Andromedon? We've learned from previous runs that a flashbang is useless. They can still use their acid bomb even while disoriented, so that's not even worth trying. Instead, I'm going for a bit of a Hail Mary play. We send Petrova in to hit the rend and then set up a parry. I'm hoping this will bait the punch from the big boy. I've also tried to separate out the rest of the squad to avoid a target of multiple troops for the acid bomb. The thinking here is that we want to make the punch as appealing as possible to the Andromedon. And sure enough, it does take the bait. Petrova parries the punch and we take 0 damage. I was sweating when this happened, but it's turned out well here. The thing is, on the next turn, we still cannot bring the Andromedon to second form since the troops are still dealing with the Spectres. So we end up having to bait the punch attack again, and this is just working stupidly well. The Andromedon keeps going for the punch, and every time it does this, not only are we not taking any damage because of parry, but Petrova gets to attack back with a Blade Storm. So I'm thinking going forward, this could be a really good way to exploit the Andromedon's AI. Come the third turn, we do reduce the Andromedon to its shell, and then Petrova actually shuts it down with her rend attack. I'm not sure I've ever seen that happen before. But yeah, long story short, it takes an eternity to eliminate this thing, but we do eventually pull it off. And of course, the next pod also has an Andromedon, plus a heavy mech as well. Now this is way too much HP for us to deal with, so instead I throw down some claymores and we're going to use remote start. I'm thinking this is a great idea. It's going to do a huge amount of damage with all those explosions. But what I don't realise is that Peng is actually next to an explosive barrel himself. It gets caught in the remote start explosion, causing it to explode, and we almost one-shot our own guy. Now obviously that's not great, but the pod has taken enormous damage and we will be able to heal Peng up using Tarek, so I'm thinking everything should be fine. Then we've got the pod in the elevator room and we're just going to run past that. The Reapers are really good for this. It allows us to scout exactly where the bad guys are, and that way we can get the rest of the squad as close to the elevator as possible without actually activating the enemies. That ensures that they're close enough to just run past the bad guys and reach the platform so we can head down to the Scarlet Man's chamber. Of course, there's yet another Andromedon waiting for us, so we're gonna have to use the same bait strategy with Petrova. It seems to be a really effective way at shutting these things down. After that, the Warlock is gonna arrive and I make a massive mistake here. My plan is to eliminate the Skullet Boy on his turn using Petrova's Blade Storm. But I mess up and Peng's Banish ends up doing too much damage, and he just straight up murks the Warlock with this attack. Now normally doing a lot of damage would be a good thing, but not here. In this particular instance, it's actually catastrophic for us. If we could finish the Warlock on his turn, we'd have an entire free turn without reinforcements to target the PS5. Instead, because we took him down on our turn, we're going to have more enemies spawning in every single enemy turn. And of course, we're going to get 2 Andromedons on back-to-back turns. These things are the absolute worst enemies for us to face since they are just so bulky. And once there's 2 of them, our Petrova strat goes out the window. She can only bait the punch attack from one of them, not both. So this is really bad. On top of that, the amount of damage we're doing to the Saku Hugs is just so low. And the main thing is we've already used abilities like Chain Shot on the Warlock, so now they're on cooldown. Without those multi-attack skills, this thing just has way too much HP and it's taking us too long to whittle it down. Now, in retrospect, even with Bladestorm, the Warlock may have still been able to summon in some heavy mechs with his Mech Lord ability. I can't quite remember the priority of those attacks, so maybe our overkill with Banish didn't make any real difference, I'm not sure, but nonetheless, the Warlock is now back with full HP. We weren't able to take down the sarcophagus, and he's got 2 Andromedons by his side. So what proceeds to occur is, quite simply put, a massacre. There's just too many enemies with too much HP, and we don't have the means to cut through it. Petrova eats a one-shot crit and goes into bleed out. Then Pang also takes a crit, and he's just gone straight to the Shadow Realm. Malorian and Glass Cannon get an acid bomb. Then our second Reaper takes a punch from an Andromedon shell. Malorian succumbs to the acid damage immediately, but Glass Cannon manages to hold on with a single point of HP. And that's all that she needs to be mind-controlled by the Warlock. We're left with our specialist Tarek, and that's it. Now, with only one soldier, obviously we have 0 chance of winning this mission now, so at this point it's just about minimizing the damage. We use Stabilize on Petrova, so she's just unconscious, she's not bleeding out anymore. This way she'll at least survive the mission and just be captured. We may have a chance to rescue her later on. Then comes the enemy turn, Tarek gets taken out, and that's it. We've failed the Warlock's base assault. It has been a very long time since we failed one of these missions. And because we've done it here, it means that we cannot get rid of this guy for the entire campaign. The Skullet Man will appear on the final mission. That is assuming we even make it that far. We just lost all of our best soldiers. Or did we? See, it turns out Petrova isn't actually captured. She's just back. I mean, she's injured, of course, but she's returning to the Avenger in one piece. Now, this was certainly a surprise to me, but a pleasant one. Very glad that we've still got access to our Templar. I guess Advent assumed she was dead and then she snuck away while they weren't looking. Either way, it's good to have her back in the barracks. In addition, Glass Cannon is alive, but she's captured, so we may be able to retrieve her at some point as well. Now, as is usual in these scenarios, all of the equipment that our eliminated soldiers were carrying is gone. So that means no more poison grenade, no more dragon or venom rounds, and we're too short on Elerium cores to build more. So this is a massive setback. The combination of doing too much damage on the Warlock and then having 2 Andromedons as reinforcements, it was just too much for us, and it very well may cost us the run. And I will admit I did get salty about this on stream, but I got over it pretty quickly. At least I think I did. This loss didn't drain my soul the way the Rookies Only run did. We're just going to push forward and see how far we can make it. I'm not really expecting to win at this point, but I'm going to give it my best. Things continue going badly with the next guerrilla op. It's another failed mission. There's just too many pods activating all at once, and it forces us to evac out. Now, this triggers the Advent Sealed Armor Dark event, but realistically, since we lost all our fire and poison bullets and grenades anyway, that particular dark event doesn't really make any practical difference. So yeah, we're basically at rock bottom. Losing this mission actually makes no difference because we can't sink any lower. This is going to be interesting. Alright, the mission after that one, we've got a council mission and our reward is none other than Glass Cannon. I wasn't expecting to get her back so quickly, but we are going to take this opportunity. Not only is she high level, she's also got an AIM PCS equipped, as well as holding our venom rounds. So if we can get her back, that's going to be really good. I load up the team with mostly squaddies, and you better believe that this is a Suicide Squad mission. I'm not expecting these guys to make it back. Now, one exception is Salty. He's a bit higher level and he has the Phantom ability, so I'm thinking maybe he can scout the area from concealment. And the plan is pretty simple. Use these brave meat shields to distract Advent while Cannon sprints to safety. The team does their job. They have 3 pods barreling down on them, and they are soaking up fire as I try to keep Glass Cannon out of line of sight. We even have a couple of specialists who can use aid protocol on her to hopefully keep her alive a bit longer. Now, there is a reload on this mission. We activate a pod with an Overwatch ambush, and of course our troops target the Codex, probably the worst unit in the pod to use the Overwatch on. This causes it to clone, and the clone is then able to psionic bomb the entire squad, even though it shouldn't be since it's just activating. Now, this is some garbage. The honest man rule is being applied. After the reload, we kick off the engagement again, and the carnage here is so crazy that Santa's demise actually crashes the entire game. I had to reboot my PC on stream. So yeah, this was an utter beatdown. Even my computer couldn't handle what a butt kicking we were receiving. But despite all this, Cannon does manage to escape, and the skirmisher actually survives as well. He's got a grappling hook, so he can just leave the rest of the team high and dry, saving himself. It was looking like Salty would survive too. He's a yellow move away from the evac and he's still concealed. So we just got to get to our next turn and he's home free. Sadly, the enemies flank him on their turn, so that removes his concealment, and from there, Advent then opens fire on him and our boy goes down. So it cost a lot of lives and it even crashed my PC, but our girl is back. The Warlock may have taken a lot from us, but he hasn't taken everything. And check this out. After that valiant display from all those fallen soldiers, we send Glass Cannon out on a mission. She misses a 96% shot on one outing, and then on the very next deployment she misses a 99% shot. Yeah, I'm so glad that we sacrificed all of these troops to get her back. She's truly a valuable asset that we can't live without, isn't she? I'm actually thinking maybe she's still mind-controlled by the Warlock. Maybe now she's a double agent. It would explain why she's missing so much. More seriously, back on the strategic layer, the Warlock can now launch an attack on the Avenger. Now I'm worried about that. We had to do that mission in the Rookies Only run and it was absolutely horrible, so I'm not looking forward to having to do it again. But we get really lucky with the Covert Ops, and we actually get one where we can counter his attack. So that is just brilliant. It has bought us some much needed time. Soon after this, we have a loot crate mission, and I feel like I should include this one since it took over an hour, but honestly, I don't even really know how to describe it. The game seemed to be falling apart at the seams at several points on this one. It was kind of a surreal experience, honestly. So first things first, we've been able to recruit another Reaper after we lost our previous ones, and Gerard here has Shredder as a hidden ability. Now that is really awesome, but the trade-off is that she doesn't score tactical rigging. So that means she's not going to be able to carry any special ammo, which is a little bit annoying. Nonetheless, we can use her to scout the area. Of course, we're going to do that. And if she gets line of sight on both Advent and Lost, the two groups of enemies will activate to attack each other. Now, as long as we remain in concealment, no loot crates will be tagged by Advent, they won't get taken away, and no more Lost will spawn in. And I am just absolutely abusing this mechanic here, especially because we can combine it with remote start. So Gerard's running around for ages, just activating bad guys and then letting them attack each other, and of course we're inflicting big damage with remote start whenever the opportunity arises. And it takes an absolute eternity, but Advent eventually destroy all the Lost. Now once this happens, they start beelining for our position. We saw this, I think, in the Long War II Sharpshooters run as well. Advent will just magically know where we are, even though they're not supposed to, and they'll start charging full speed towards us. Once our concealment is gone, new pods of Lost will start spawning on the map. And we've had maybe half a dozen notifications during stealth about a Lost swarm approaching. Of course, none of them have ever come, and so I think when we do lose the concealment, the game is kind of like a dam about to burst. it is just desperately wanting to spawn in this Lost pod. So it spawns them in, and they're invisible. Yeah, an entire group of Lost that we can't actually see. Now, with Gerard's shadow ability, we can determine where the Lost are standing. The red detection squares will appear around them. So that tells us where they are at least, and we can even target these invisible boys like we can with any other Lost. Even though we can't see them, apparently our soldiers can. The problem is we're not able to see their HP bars. And normally when targeting Lost, I start with the ones on low enough HP that they're guaranteed to be a one-shot on a hit. Basically pick off the weakest ones first, and then work up to the beefier ones. However, since we have no idea what their HP is, we can't do that. And that means I can't really maximize the action economy, making sure that we get as many shots on these guys as we can. So long story short, this brave resistance operative, Calvin Russell, gets murked by invisible Lost. Yeah, what a way to go. Taken down by invisible Lost. Absolute cringe. Now, to elaborate on this, we picked up the resistance order that gives a chance of a resistance operative joining us on missions. Now, this has nothing to do with any research projects, so it's fine for the challenge run. And the game seems to be extremely generous with giving us these guys. In a span of about 5 missions, I think we score an extra soldier 4 times. Now, they're not very good, they have a measly 3 HP, but even so, an extra attack is an extra attack, so I'm gonna take it. And we do finally win this one. The only loss we suffer is Calvin, but it was incredibly obnoxious. Just so much jank. At least we have some more Elerium cores, so we can get back to building more special ammo. We soon have another council mission to eliminate a dark VIP. I opt to just send Gerard, and I'm hoping that we can get a stealth elimination with the Claymore and then just book it safely to the evac zone. We do all this before Advent even knows what hit them. That's the plan at least. It goes a bit sideways when another resistant soldier joins us. They seem to think that we need the help, and honestly they may be right. Just not on this mission. It's going to be much more difficult to keep Sophia here concealed than it is Gerard, but of course I'm gonna try my best. We hug the side of the map, just trying to get the 2 soldiers as close to the evac as possible. At least until it's time for Gerard to go a different direction so that she can move in on the VIP. Sophia, meanwhile, we're just gonna stick to the outskirts of the map and keep going to the evac zone. And the Claymore plan works really well. Our Reaper obliterates the VIP and she's still in concealment. The Resistance operative is as well. We then continue our journey to the evac zone, and just before we get there, an Advent reinforcement pod drops in on us. Now, because both our soldiers are still concealed, the pod doesn't activate when it drops in. The game seems to get confused here, we get even more jank, and just nothing happens. The game just stalls. And I did time it here. It was about 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the game just doing nothing before we could finally control our troops again. Yeah, it seems the jank is just endless on this run. Nonetheless, I am glad that Sophia survives this one. I wish Calvin had too. Now after that, we do find ourselves in a bit of a spot, to say the least. We've got a covert op to reduce avatar progress, and these things are great since they're allowing me to delay the Psionic Gate mission. And I do have a plan for that particular encounter, I just need more time to perfect it. So on this covert op, we send Glass Cannon since the reward is an aim buff, and she clearly needs it with how much she loves to miss. I also send Jonas since I'm thinking those two might make a good bond mate. Of course, Cannon's previous bond with Malorian is no more since he's now residing in the Shadow Realm. Now as this is happening, I'm also training Petrova and Dreadnought the Sharpshooter to max out their bond. Sharpshooters can be really useful since Venom or Dragon rounds combined with Face Off, that has the potential to cripple a large amount of opponents all at once. And so long story short, 3 of our best troops, Petrova, Cannon, and Jonas are all unavailable right now. And just like clockwork, this is the time the Warlock decides to strike. We did delay the attack with that covert op we did earlier, but it seems that this base defense is like Judgment Day. It can only be postponed, never prevented entirely. And we've taken so many losses in this run that I'm bringing a corporal in Chainsaw Turkey out on the mission. This is truly desperate times. Also working against us is that Gerard is still tired from a previous deployment. So it's not looking good, but there are a couple of things working in our favour. Milo, our specialist who's replacing Tarek, he also has chain shot, so that's pretty lucky. I decide I'm going to bond him with Gerard the same way I bonded Pang and Tarek. And we do have some more ammo now, including 2 lots of Venom rounds and Talon rounds. Those extra Elerium cores are coming in helpful. Now Venom rounds I'm going to put on the Sharpshooter Devon and our Skirmisher Brute. I'm thinking the ability to poison multiple enemies, since these guys can shoot multiple times in a turn, that should be quite useful. As for the Talon rounds, we're giving those to our 2 rangers, Notchild and Valkyria. They will combo very well with the shotgun's preference for close range. I nearly forgot to include that in this video. Let me know, do you guys think the joke is overdone, or do you want me to keep including it? Personally, I still find it hilarious no matter how many times I use it. Anyway, I should also mention that Notchild has picked up Shred as an extra ability. So once he reaches max level and has rapid fire, that is going to be extremely powerful. Assuming any of us live that long, of course. If we lose here, the campaign is over. So let's give it our best. Just like the Rookies Only run, the Warlock is constantly dropping spectral zombies on us. And that really slows our progress. But unlike the Rookies run, we do have Gerard to scout the area. So this allows us to spot upcoming pods, and it makes it easier setting up Overwatch ambushes. That does help mitigate the large enemy numbers that we're dealing with, to an extent. Before long, we find ourselves facing down 3 chrysalids and 4 spectral zombies. Now it takes a huge effort to get rid of these things. Notchild has to blow his concealment, Brute has to use his one-time only free whiplash attack, Julian's gonna use overdrive to make multiple shots, Devon's busting out face-off. We're just using whatever we have to inflict as much damage as we can. And it comes down to our very last action, a hidden shot with Gerard, but we do indeed eliminate all the bad guys before they can hit us. And thanks to Silent Killer, Gerard is still concealed. So the game's not pulling any punches right out of the gate, and even though we've survived this early encounter, the mission may become a battle of attrition. Things like Whiplash and our grenades are limited use. We could be in big trouble when we run out of them. Then on the next pod, Turkey is mind-controlled by a priest. Now due to Gerard's low will, this causes her to panic. She starts firing blindly, and of course this is going to break her concealment. During the enemy turn, when 2 troops are right next to her and still have all their actions left. Well, would you believe they decide to run around in circles instead of attacking her? The jank is coming through for us this time, and I don't think this was an up-throttling thing. There weren't that many enemies active, so I don't know what's going on. I'm just glad our Reaper is still breathing. Now back on our turn, Turkey is actually on Overwatch. See, we put him on Overwatch on our last turn, and it's now carried over because he's mind-controlled and on the enemy side. So we need a way to remove that, otherwise he's going to Overwatch at us. And Notchild is the man for the task. He destroys the priest with a big damage crit. Those Talon rounds are clutch. With the Overwatch removed, we're now free to reposition as we please. And we can't finish the pod this turn, but we can hit him with a flashbang, and we can poison the remaining trooper. Plus, we can also protect Gerard with an aid protocol. So between all these things, there's not really anything that the Advent troops can do to us. Now, of course, the Warlock does start spawning more zombies, and Notchild starts hitting them with Bladestorm. I really should place this guy at the front of the squad. He'll be able to use that Blade Storm every single time these zombies are summoned in. Once these villains are dealt with, I'm trying to focus on destroying the nearby cannons. The problem is we are just getting constantly interrupted either by more pods or more spectral zombies. So it takes absolutely ages before we can destroy these things and then start moving up towards the bigger cannon. And I am starting to worry about the Avengers' integrity. If it drops to 0, the campaign's over. Now, after the first lot of smaller cannons, there is a second one, but I'm pleased to say I have learned my lesson from the Rookies Only run. Gerard has been spying on a pod of a Codex and 3 Archons, protecting the second lot of smaller cannons. And as much as I would love to attack these things straight away, I've realised that if we leave the cannons and the pod alone, they won't really bother us. These pods don't seem to patrol the area, they just stay near the cannons to guard them. So I make sure to eliminate all the other nearby enemies first, and I ensure that our team is ready before we target the Archons. Once the time comes, 2 Claymores absolutely destroy them. Like literally, it one-shots the entire pod. The Claymores destroy one of the trucks, which also blows up, and that extra damage is enough to take down all of the Archons. So it's absolutely bonkers. We just crushed these guys. We destroy the remaining truck and then we push forward towards the big cannon. There are multiple sector pods patrolling, so we're taking our time, and of course the Spectrals slow us down even further. Now, Recrafted is using Squad Sight from quite a distance away to target the big gun already. Gerard has line of sight on it, so that allows Recrafted to be able to use Squad Sight. And I would have loved to bring more sharpshooters on this one, but he was literally the only one we had available. So it takes a little bit longer, but we do blow up the big gun, and one of the sector pods gets caught in the blast. Its underlings are immediately incinerated, the machine itself survives on a mere 5 HP. So this is looking really promising. The second healthy sector pod does patrol into us at this point, and check out the Purifier as the pod activates. This dude has lost his mind. What are you doing, bro? Now, I would have thought the Stun Lancer is close enough to the sector pod to take damage when we blow it up, but he doesn't, so that's pretty cringe. As far as how we took down the sector pod, remember, we do have 10 soldiers at our disposal on this one, so we've got significantly more firepower than a regular mission. As long as we're dealing with only 1 pod at a time, we should be able to handle pretty much anything. It does come down to the wire with this one though. The Stun Lancer survives and it runs at Notchild. He's able to eliminate it with a Blade Storm, and that's what finishes the pod. So it's taking everything we have, but we are standing toe-to-toe with Advent. As for the low HP sector pod, well, it walks too close to a car and it gets remote started all the way to the Shadow Realm. So finishing that one off was really easy. And now I think it's just us and the Warlock at this point, and Gerard is still concealed. I gotta be honest, this is going brilliantly. I'm a little bit in shock. We kick things off against the Skullet Man with a point-blank banish from Gerard. This not only shreds him, it's also exploiting both his weaknesses at the same time, so we can get some pretty good damage on him. Unfortunately, he has learned the Planewalker ability by now. So he's just teleporting all over the place. Combine that with his low profile, and it's quite difficult inflicting any further damage on him. It's just so hard to make the shots. So he's going to survive until his turn, where he summons in 2 heavy mechs. And I do start to panic a little here. That is so much HP, and we are completely out of explosives. We have not a single explosive left to our name. So instead, I opt for a plan that's a little bit risky. See, we get a bit lucky as both our rangers hit big damage crits to eliminate one of the mechs. Now, as for the second one, Recrafted can give a bonded action to Notchild. Notchild runs right in next to the mech to hit it with a sword attack. And the thing about Notchild is that in addition to Shred, this guy also picked up Blast Padding as an extra ability. It seems this guy is a grenadier trapped in a ranger's body. So the plan is that we want the mech to shoot at him, and hopefully it misses because we've put an aid protocol on him. But even if it doesn't miss, as long as it doesn't crit, he should be bulky enough that he can tank the hit. Like I said, it's risky, but I think it's the best option that we've got. Thankfully, it doesn't end up mattering. The mech doesn't target Notchild. Instead, it uses its missile attack to hit Drifter and Valkyria. And I'm honestly fine with that since the missiles won't one-shot us. So we've taken a little bit of damage, but we haven't lost anyone. That's not a bad outcome for how dangerous a heavy mech can be. Then the Warlock gets to act and he mind-controls Gerard. Now that's not great, but it's not terrible either, especially because she's already used Banish. So on our turn, Overdrive is off cooldown, so of course we're going to use that straight away with Julian. And he instantly misses an 89% shot on the mech. Just amazing. He is able to hit the Warlock and we get a whopping 3 damage dodge. We just expended 3 action points with this guy and we did a pitiful 3 HP of damage. You suck, Julian. Fortunately, the rest of the team is a little bit less incompetent. We are able to dispose of the mech, and then we do enough damage to the Warlock that he enters his safety bubble. Now in theory that's a good thing since it ends the mind control on Gerard, and it means that he can't attack us. The downside is that it means we now have 4 Spectral Stun Lancers that we need to deal with. We can quickly one-shot the first one with Remote Start, but sadly the rest of them are outside the blast zone. We use Brute's Justice attack on a second, that pulls it closer to the rest of the squad, and this allows some of the other soldiers to finish it off. We then focus fire on the third one. The shots are tough, but the team's able to take it down as well. So that leaves only a single Lancer, and that honestly isn't too bad. We almost finish it with a Blade Storm on the enemy turn, but it hangs on with just a single point of HP. We just couldn't inflict enough damage. Now it hits Brute and our skirmisher is dazed, but he's alive. Of course, that doesn't stop Gerard from panicking again. Yeah, bringing tired troops into combat, it's really annoying. Avoid it whenever possible. Now we still have 8 troops that are ready to go, so we can bring the Spectral down at the start of our turn, and then we're going to focus everything we have left on the Warlock. And Notchild is not playing around. He blasts the Talky Dude with a crazy 15 damage crit. His buddy recrafted then lands the final blow, and we send the Warlock packing. 24 turns, 55 enemies defeated, but we've stayed off the Warlock's assault. The run continues on. And even though this mission took forever and it was pretty annoying, it's also pretty cool. The Warlock repelled our attack on his base, but now we've done the same thing to him. It seems XCOM's and the Warlock's forces are pretty evenly matched, one unable to defeat the other, destined to duel forever. This is how rivalries are forged. After this debacle is behind us, I turn my attention to the Hunter's stronghold. I'm hoping we can exploit his explosion weakness to our favour, and hopefully it's going to go much better than the Warlock's base did. I make sure to bring Gerard for the Claymores, Julian for the Rocket, and a couple of Grenadiers. As we enter his chamber, I'm very pleased there's an Advent soldier in the enemy pod waiting for us. This is going to allow Petrova to take that corpse and create a ghost, and 7 soldiers for this fight is definitely better than 6. Now the ghost doesn't have a gun, so it can't attack the eviler iPad, but it will still be valuable in dealing with enemy reinforcements. Like, if we had the ghost on the Warlock's mission, we may have been able to bait punch attacks from both Andromedons and keep the squad much safer. So yeah, the ghost I'm thinking is going to come in really handy, and it's always good to have an extra soldier. Now as the Hunter appears, we move in with Gerard and lob a Claymore his way. Of course, this ends Gerard's turn, she's moved and then thrown the Claymore, but since she's bonded with Milo, he can give her another action. That allows 2 Claymores to be thrown onto the edgy boy. Top that off with a rocket on the Hunter from Julian, and it deals a huge amount of HP to this guy. He's hanging on with only 7 hit points left, and a grenade from Jonas can quickly deprive him of that as well. From there, it's time to open fire on the shiny brick. And the difference here versus the Warlock is that in that previous fight, I used things like Chain Shot and Overdrive on the Warlock himself. That was a mistake since it meant we couldn't use those abilities on the Metal Toblerone. This time, all of those abilities that allow us to shoot multiple times, I've made sure to save them so that we can use them on the gigantic HP pool of the Chosen Mummy. Now, of course, enemy reinforcements are going to come in. Bladestorm with Petrova and her Ghost really help in dealing with these opponents. We're also fortunate that no Andromedon spawn. These enemies with less HP are far quicker to take down. And it takes all the firepower we can muster, but we're able to just destroy the Chosen vending machine before the Hunter restores all his HP. Instead, he's going to return with only 75% health, and even though he's in full cover, between our 2 grenadiers, we still have 3 frag grenades left, and they're all going to do an extra 2 damage because of Volatile Mix. Even better, Glass Cannon has the salvo ability, so she can launch both of her grenades on the same turn. We can use all 3 of them at once, and we just destroy this guy's HP bar a second time over. He hangs on with a pittance of HP, Milo finishes him off with a combat protocol, and yeah, this certainly went much better than the Warlock stronghold. Soon the Avatar project maxes out again, and there's only one option to stop it. The Psionic Gate mission. We've lost contact with all the regions we had that are housing Advent facilities due to losing missions. So it really is the Psionic Gate or bust, and that means we're gonna have to deal with the Assassin. Her strengths are pretty disturbing, kinetic plating and revenge are always a nasty combination, plus she has immunity to explosions. I don't see this being an easy fight. I was hoping to avoid this mission until we had already taken care of the assassin in a stronghold, but there's no choice. We have to win here or forfeit the entire run. The first pod is a group of Advent soldiers, and once again this works to our favour. We need a humanoid corpse to use the ghost ability, and these guys will give us that. There's only one problem. We need 2 focus to summon a ghost, and Petrova only has 1. I didn't really think through the fight enough. I should have made sure that she scored an elimination with Rend. That would give her an extra point of focus and we'd be sweet. Because ideally, we want to send the ghost out to trigger the buried chrysalids. But in order to do that, Petrova needs to score another kill. So, is there an enemy we can take down before having to engage the chrysalids? And in fact, yes there is. The Assassin. Barring any jank, which is always a distinct possibility of course, she should charge straight for our position. So I set up a bit of a trap. We fall right back with every soldier except for Gerard. We're hiding behind this building, and I'm just hoping the assassin will run through it. An opened door or a smashed window will reveal her position. We do have a single use of scanning protocol with Milo, so we just need to make sure that we use that at the right time to reveal her. Either too late or too early, and the ability is going to be useless. Now, as a backup, I'm patrolling the area in front of the building with Gerard. If she can flank the assassin, she'll reveal her location. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. We spot the dreadlock lady just before she's about to attack us. So that gives us the opportunity to attack her first. Things like chain shot and rapid fire are really useful since the assassin has the bewildered weakness. She also takes extra damage from Templars, and this combination is pretty crazy. It leads to a lightning hands from Petrova's tier 1 auto pistol doing a whopping 9 damage. I imagine that's going to be a record for the pistol shots this run. And the great part about the Templar weakness is that it makes it really easy for Petrova to be the one to score the elimination. That means she gets her extra point of focus, and now we can bring in a ghost with one of those Advent corpses. Once this is done, the approach is to then use Aid Protocol on the ghost and send it in to draw out the chrysalids. I've been buffing Petrova's dodge stat with Covert Ops for quite a while, and have also given her a PCS upgrade that increases her dodge as well. So her dodge stat is a very impressive 68. Aid Protocol will make the lids less likely to hit, and then even if they do, the ghost has about a 2/3 chance of dodging. That's going to minimise the damage. I've also buffed Petrova's HP with Covert Ops, so she can take a fair bit more damage than some of our other soldiers. The ghost is also immune to chrysalid poison, so that works to our favour. I'm not sure if this is because of Petrova's Fortress ability, or if the ghost is just always immune to poison, but either way it works in our favour. On top of all of this, when our spectral friend does take damage, Milo can heal it with Medical Protocol. And it honestly goes really well. Buffing Petrova's stats and leveling her up enough for the ghost ability, they were the reasons I was holding off on doing this mission. That was the plan I mentioned a little while ago. I would have loved to give her even more dodge and HP, but the avatar progress forced our hand. As it is, the plan is still working really well. We then send the ghost out to the psionic gate, but it doesn't trigger the gatekeeper. Even when it's standing right in front of the gate, nothing happens. I'm wondering if the ghost isn't able to trigger the gatekeeper spawn. Maybe it has to be a proper XCOM soldier. I don't know, this is weird. Now what the ghost can trigger is a pod of 3 chrysalids. I run the ghost back to the rest of the team to set up an Overwatch ambush. Almost all of our shots miss and we're unable to down a single enemy. So plan didn't really go according to the plan there. Anyway, it still works fine in the end. The chrysalids rush our position, but they can't actually attack us this turn. They don't have any action points left. So that makes it really easy for us to dispose of them on our next turn. I then run the ghost forward, figuring we're at absolutely no risk of activating the gatekeeper, and you can probably guess what happens at that point. What? What? Oh, how dare you, game? How dare you? Oh, that's ridiculous. That is... So I have no idea how this gatekeeper trigger works. I used to think it would happen as soon as you made line of sight on the gate itself, but now there seems to be no consistency to it whatsoever. I mean, the ghost literally ran through the same location as it retreated from the chrysalids, and nothing happened. This makes no sense, and I'm thinking it's just more jank at this point. But regardless of the reason, this is bad. Our tier 1 armor means our troops are pretty squishy. If the gatekeeper survives to its turn, it could easily one-shot somebody. And we've used up about half our action points on the chrysalids, so we don't have many attacks left. I did make sure to save the claymores for the gatekeeper, so we can lob those. That's something we've still got up our sleeve. And after we've blown this thing up and done quite a bit of damage, then it's up to Notchild to finish it off with a rapid fire. So let's see how he does. Well, the first shot's a miss, that's not good, but the second delivers a much needed crit. The egg is down to 2 HP and the ghost can easily finish it from there with Rend. Despite the nonsense with the gatekeeper activation, this mission has actually gone incredibly well. I had been holding off on it for a really long time, but it was actually really easy. And I am regretting delaying it since now we have a big problem with avatar progress. We have reduced it by 2 and that's going to keep us alive for now, but I'm concerned that the bar could spike back up and fill at any moment. Once that happens, we have 0 options for reducing it again. We need to contact a region housing a facility as soon as possible. Problem is, we don't have the intel to do that. So the game is pretty much up to RNG at this point. If we can hold out long enough to reach a facility, I think we have this campaign in the bag. But if the Avatar project maxes out again too soon before we can deal with it, then we're finished. So it's high stakes. We do have an intel scanning reward on the strategic layer, so we are going to grab that, but before we can, we have a supply raid that we need to deploy on. We encounter a sector pod, but initially I'm not too worried about it. We've taken on multiple of these things at this point. We should be able to do it again, and sure enough we can destroy it because we have basically a whole team with multi-shot abilities. So yeah, focusing our efforts, we can take down one of these giant mechs pretty easily. In fact, after we destroy it, Recrafted still has multiple attacks left just by himself. We take a 58% lightning hand shot at the stun lancer, but we miss. I decide let's move in a bit closer and we can raise that hit chance up to 72%. We have fanfire, so that's 3 shots Recrafted can make in a row, and we get 2 misses and 1 dodge. And I gotta say, the rage was flowing through me at this point. 4 shots, all over 50% chance to hit, most of them significantly over 50%, yet we still cannot manage a single regular hit. But even that's not enough. The Lancer, obviously it survives, so it runs out for a melee attack, it gets set on fire, and this resets its turn. So it gets another set of actions to shoot at us instead. And we've seen this before, I think it was all the way back in the Templars only run, and it's really annoying. In this instance, it leads to us losing our skirmisher. So yeah, just the frustration really setting in here. But it's not over yet. After that, Drifter gets punched to death by an Andromedon. So yeah, this mission is just great. I was actually thinking Drifter was going to live to see the end of a campaign. That hasn't happened in forever, but of course I should have known better. Thankfully, the next deployment goes much better. It's a dark VIP mission, and we're able to extract the VIP alive. That gives us enough intel to make contact with an Advent facility. Around the same time, we actually also finish the mandatory story research. So in theory, we can finish the campaign whenever we want. Before that though, I would like to remove the assassin from the equation if we can, and there are some soldier bonds that I'd also like to get to maximum level. So we are going to delay the campaign to get those things done. The flip side to that is that it gives Advent the opportunity to launch the regular base defense mission. And man, this one is annoying. We have 3 top-level soldiers still in the barracks, but Bradford totally ignores them in order to send out a bunch of troops who are lieutenant level or lower. No wonder aliens took over the planet with this idiot Bradford in charge of XCOM. So we're gonna have to overcome his incompetence if we want to win here. And I do have a plan for that. See, we've been able to pick up a second Reaper again. He's actually a 4th Reaper total, but we have 2 at a time. Now they're both max level, and the plan is to run these 2 up the side of the map to plant a bunch of claymores on the alien device. While this is happening, the rest of the squad is going to stay at the Avenger and try to hold the enemies at bay. However, that turns out to be quite a difficult task. The aliens are aggressive on this one. We've got 2 Archons and an Andromedon wreck charging our position. I'm expecting at least 1 or 2 of them to ignore our troops and beeline to the Avenger platform. That's what they normally do on this mission. But not these guys. They are out for blood. They surround Notchild and we come super close to losing him. He's down to a pitiful 3 HP. Between the low-level reinforcements that we're getting, plus not having the Reapers to assist in the fight, we just don't have the damage output that we need to repel the enemy forces. So I end up just running Notchild away and hoping that the bad guys will target a closer unit, someone who still has the HP left to take a hit. Now sure enough, they do go for a closer target, and that spells bad news for the lowly Corporal Phoenix. Yeah, Bradford ignored multiple colonels to give us a corporal. Words simply cannot describe my hatred of Bradford. Dude is just a straight scumbag. Now, thankfully, Phoenix is only bleeding out, he hasn't been shadow realmed completely, and we are able to carry his body back to the Avenger. The Reapers then make it back to the ship just in time for us to fly away with everyone more or less intact. Now this was quite a tough fight. Not having a Spark, a Templar or a Specialist made things pretty difficult. But I used the best soldiers that we had available for the task and it did work out in the end. No thanks to Bradford though. He definitely made that one harder than it needed to be. Anyway, with that behind us, let's try and wrap things up, shall we? We need to eliminate the assassin. Now once she spawns in her base, we can implement our one and only use of scanning protocol to quickly locate her. From there, the plan is to exploit the assassin's bewildered weakness. The more attacks we make, the better. At the same time, I'm also wanting to save the multi-attack abilities like Chain Shot for the Wii Remote. So I'm thinking the perfect ability to use on the assassin is Banish. It makes multiple attacks, but it can't actually be used to target the Washington... Nah, sorry, I can't say that one. I need to keep those YouTube pennies flowing in. Anyway, we might as well do some big damage on the forehead lady with Banish. That's the point. And the way this ends is just perfect. After Gerard blasts her 3 times, the assassin is left on 1 HP. The best part about this is we've already poisoned her with some venom rounds. So while we do have a couple of soldiers with actions left, and we could attack and finish the assassin here, I actually opt not to. I'm going to let her live, and she's going to go down to the poison on her turn. That way, no enemy reinforcements spawn in on the enemy turn, and we have our entire next turn to focus on the Refrigerator. And just like the Hunter's base, keeping the multi-attacks in reserve pays off hugely. We've got Chain Shot, Rapid Fire, Fan Fire, Bonded Actions, all the good stuff. Glass Cannon has even picked up Deadeye as a hidden ability. It's honestly pretty crazy. We inflict enough damage to destroy the modern art project in a single turn. The assassin spawns in with no reinforcements, they never had a chance to spawn, and she only has a pathetic 25% HP remaining. Not only that, we get some more jank, and even though she's concealed, the game is nice enough to show us exactly where she has moved to. It is going absolutely terribly for this woman. It's like we've swapped roles at this point. She's XCOM and we're the bad guys. Now with all these things going wrong for the assassin, of course we're going to destroy her pretty quickly, and I think this went even better than the Hunter's Stronghold. It also means the assassin was not able to launch a single attack against us the entire campaign. I didn't see that coming, but this is great news. It means the Warlock is going to be the only chosen left on the final mission. We're only going to have to deal with one of them, which I'm hoping we can handle. The avatar progress does max out again, and there's still a bond or two that I want to max out, so we set out to that Advent facility we contacted. Not only will this reduce the avatar progress by 4 blocks, which is pretty massive, this particular facility doesn't have an alien ruler, so there's absolutely no downside to attacking it. We can blow this thing up and still not have to worry about any alien rulers. We use both Reapers as well as some low-level meat shields, and we just sneak in, set the explosives, and then run like the wind to the evac zone. The mission goes fine, and we're now just chilling out on the strategic layer until we're ready for the final assault. So let's go and do that. On the network tower, we're sending the new Reaper Haunt, we're sending Notchild, and we're sending his bondmate Recrafted. I've given Notchild a mobility PCS, so I'm hoping that between run and gun and 2 bonded actions, maybe he'll be able to run far enough in a turn that we can avoid a lot of the enemies and just activate the terminal and finish the mission. However, we encounter a bit of a snag with this plan. For some ungodly reason, the Reaper's shadow ability apparently doesn't work on this mission. Yeah, this one single mission in the whole game, the Reaper has the detection radius of a normal soldier. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's never any explanation for this provided. It's never explained to the player at all. So I'm thinking it's got to be a glitch, right? This cannot be intended behavior. Regardless, it leads to us losing concealment way earlier than I'm ready for, and what proceeds is an absolute horror show. Our team just gets torn apart. It's brutal. So I decide to reload, and I'm counting this as honest man. At best, this issue with concealment is an oversight from the devs and not intended behavior. At worst, it's the game arbitrarily changing the rules with no warning to the player. Both scenarios fall within the scope of honest man, so I think we're good here. But the thing is, as I click the restart mission button, the game crashes to desktop. This jank is so bad the game is choosing to yeet itself again. Alright, take 2. This time we ignore every single enemy and we just run Notchild straight to the console. He's able to hack it with ease and we can leave this stupid mission in the dust. I'm gonna be salty about this one for a little while. Alright, it's time for the final battle. We're bringing Gerard, Milo, Petrova, Dreadnought, Glass Cannon, and Jonas. 3 max level bonds here, but even better than that, we can use the commander's avatar as well, and that alone is a huge power spike. The first pod is no problem, we can take care of the enemies pretty easily, and we're even able to mind control the codex. So that actually makes 8 soldiers that we have working for us right now. The second pod though, well, it's 2 Andromedons and a gatekeeper. So maybe I should have saved that mind control for these guys. They're a lot bulkier. Gonna be harder to take down. Petrova having Fortress is great. It means that she can rend the gatekeeper into oblivion and not take any damage as it blows up. Plus, I've activated her Reaper ability, so she has her action refunded. The only downside with using Reaper is the usual one with Templars. Moving her that far forward for the melee strike, you're always at risk of activating other pods, and in this case it activates the Warlock. It's time for the final showdown with this guy. Now as we target the Andromedons, the problem repeats itself, and we activate a pod of 2 Archons. And all of these high HP enemies are going to be a big problem for our tier 1 weapons. We hit a psionic bomb from the codex on the Warlock and one of the Archons. Now initially it's not going to do anything, but the enemy AI doesn't seem to interpret the psionic bomb as a threat. So the Warlock and one of the Archons just stay inside the blast radius, taking damage at the end of their turn. That means it's our turn again, and I'm going to burn through Banish with Gerard. The Warlock's Planewalker ability makes him very hard to deal with, so I figure we should take as many shots as we can while he's right in front of her. Of course, doing this, she's also going to shred all of his armor. After that, I'm going to turn our attention to eliminating the remaining lesser enemies. The Warlock has just teleported too far away. It's going to be difficult going after him. Instead, Petrova charges out to rend one of the Archons. Now she doesn't finish it off, but Bladestorm will on the enemy turn. So this Archon is finished before it's going to be able to do anything. The problem with this is that moving Petrova so far out leaves her pretty isolated with the Warlock, so he's able to mind control her. The rest of the team is too far away to help. I'm not sure what to do. Really, the only option we have for a good attack on the Warlock is to teleport with the Codex. So we do that, and we activate a pod of 6 mechs. Now this is devastating. Planewalker is just such a painful ability. The plan becomes to just leave the Codex exposed. We're going to use it as a meat shield to absorb some enemy fire. Everyone else is going to fall back away from the mechs. There's still an Archon to eliminate, so the rest of the team can focus on that while they fall back. And we are able to destroy the Archon, but unfortunately the Meat Shield Codex plan fails horribly. The mind control ends on the enemy turn, so instead of protecting us, the Codex is now also coming to destroy us. And then something interesting happens with the Warlock. He runs into an Overwatch from Jonas. Now our boy misses, but he has the TLP cannon, so the stock still inflicts a single point of damage. And that 1 point of damage is all it takes to trigger Planewalker, so of course the Warlock is going to teleport away. When he does this, it seems to end his turn, so I'm not sure if he was just out of actions, or if forcing the teleport ended his turn prematurely. Now, if it's the latter, that is an amazing strat to exploit. A stock and Overwatch could potentially shut down any chosen with Planewalker. I'm going to need to test this out in the future. For right now though, Petrova targets our avatar and it's a little bit strange. She seems to hit us with an arc wave while not actually using rend. So I'm not really sure how that works. Maybe she was using a different attack that I never use. Not too sure, but I am glad that she's focusing on the avatar. It regenerates HP every turn, so it is by far our tankiest unit. And as long as it survives, yeah, this is the guy we want to be absorbing those hits. Now we also have the feedback resistance order, and this causes Petrova to take damage since she is using a psionic attack against us. That I'm less okay with. We really don't want to lose Petrova at this point. So it's our turn again, and we can finally take down the Warlock for good. We will not be seeing him again for the rest of the campaign. The rivalry is over, and we are victorious. Plus, it also means Petrova is back on our side, and this happens just in time for the mechs to arrive. Now, they hit us pretty hard with some missiles, but apart from that, we're okay. It's time for the counter-offensive. Gerard can one-shot one of the weaker mechs with remote start, so that's one down. And it's crazy that even now that ability is still coming in so useful. The Avatar's mind control is off cooldown, so we're bringing that codex back onto our side. Every time he thinks he's out, we drag him back in. And we can use it to hit another psionic bomb on the mechs. Then with the rest of the squad, we fall back yet again. We're just going to force the mechs to move up on us until we're in a better position to hit back. Now sure enough, these things blunder forward and then the trap is ready to be sprung. See, Petrova's Reaper skill is finally off cooldown, so she can start carving up these mechs. We reduce their HP with the other soldiers first, making sure that the robots are weak enough our Templar can finish them off. As long as she's the one who gets the elimination, she gets those action points back and she can just keep attacking. This ends up working really well and the mechs go down. And I think if we include the Warlock, that was 5 pods in a row that we just took on without any downtime. Planewalker made that fight so much harder than it would have been otherwise. Really difficult there, but we seem to have cleared the immediate area, so now we can get back to scouting with Gerard and moving the rest of the team up slowly. That's going to give our abilities time to come off cooldown. The usual Berserker pod is pretty much a joke. We use Gerard's concealment, and we combine that with Dread Knight's Long Watch to activate these guys on their turn. They're going to have to run an absolute mile to reach our squad, and we're going to be raining bullets down on them the entire time they try. Not to mention, Gerard is hitting them with remote start as they do so. These things are just getting attacked from every direction, and they go down before they can do pretty much anything. That leaves the final 2 pods. There's one that's just full of stun lances, and then we have another, much scarier one of a Sectopod, some Andromedons, and some Mutons. Now both pods are clustering together at the final chamber entrance. The key here is that we're going to once again use Gerard and Dread Knight's squad sight to attack one of the stun lancers. That's going to activate the whole pod, and so we're going to have to deal with these guys. However, it's going to leave the other pod just hanging out by the door like they didn't notice anything. Because they don't have line of sight on us, they don't get to activate since we didn't attack them. So we pick off the stun lancers before they can really do anything, and then it's time for the Sectopod and its minions. And I thought I had a really good idea to deal with these guys. We throw down Gerard's final claymore, and then we use Dimensional Rift with the Avatar. Now I just assumed that the rift would detonate the claymore, but it doesn't. I should have used the homing mine ability instead. I think then it would have worked. But live and learn. So we haven't done as much damage as I would have liked as the pod activates, but that doesn't really change anything immediately. The goal is still the same. We need to destroy the sector pod first. It could easily one-shot us. So we're going to focus our attacks on that, and we are able to bring it down. As we do so, the explosion hits the muton that survived the dimensional rift, and it goes down as well. So we just got 2 for the price of 1. And that means the only remaining enemies are the 2 Andromedons. We send Petrova to reduce the first one to its shell form, and since Petrova's mobility is so high, she can easily run away and the shell is going to be too far away to punch anyone on its turn. As for the second Andromedon, the craziest thing about Dimensional Rift is that it doesn't even end the avatar's turn. That means we can use a mind control and that Andromedon now works for us. On our next turn, we destroy the remaining shell, and that's it, these guys have been defeated. The earlier part of the mission was certainly difficult since we just kept aggroing more enemies, but once we got through that, it was pretty smooth sailing. And that's going to leave just the final chamber. We send Petrova in first to bladestorm the entire pod of enemies, and from there, of course, we're going to prioritize taking down the enemy avatar first. Gerard's able to land the final blow, and thanks to Silent Killer, she even stays in concealment while she does it. I consider mind controlling one of the Archons at this point, but Petrova has already done so much damage to their HP, I eventually decide it's easier just to eliminate them. I'm thinking maybe some priests or Andromedons will arrive as reinforcements next turn, and they would be much better candidates for mind control. Unfortunately, we don't get Andromedons or priests, we only get chrysalids and vipers. I'm still going to wait for a better mind control, I think, so we'll just wipe out the Vipers with a single dimensional rift, and Petrova with Bladestorm will help the other troops terminate the chrysalids. The second avatar arrives, and the other pod of reinforcements are Vipers. And more Vipers. The one time I want bulky reinforcements coming, they are nowhere to be seen. Where was this endless supply of low HP Vipers on the Rookies Only run? It would have been great to have these things then. Whatever, RNG is gonna RNG. So Petrova uses the first avatar's body to make a ghost, so we've got an extra soldier that way, and then I decide we'll use our avatar just to mind control a Viper. It doesn't seem like we're gonna get anything better, so we just take one of these things, and that means we have 9 soldiers total who are now working for us. Despite all this firepower we now have, the enemy avatar does survive. Teleporting around just makes it really hard to deal with, just like the Warlock. And on the enemy turn, Petrova does start taking damage. Now thankfully, her stupidly high dodge stat keeps that damage to a minimum. So she's gonna be okay, but meanwhile, one of the enemy Vipers binds our avatar. So we're starting to take hits, we're getting soldiers shut down, we are beginning to be overwhelmed here. We use our snack to attack the other one, and that unbinds our avatar. Our boy then promptly downs the second enemy avatar with a null lance. And just like that, I'm thinking the tide is turning back in our favour. I send the ghost in to help clean out the snacks, and check this out. It's not immune to poison. Now this is weird. It was immune to chrysalid poison on the Psionic Gate mission, but apparently it's still affected by regular poison. And at the bottom of the screen, we can clearly see Fortress is not one of the ghost's abilities. So that answers that question. I'm glad I didn't use this thing to attack any purifiers. That could have ended really badly. The third and final avatar arrives, and it's in a pretty horrible location. The only option for a flanking shot is to use Jonas's run and gun ability, which he scored as an extra skill. He moves in, and it's an 80% chance to land the rupture shot. Even though he's surrounded by hostiles, as long as he hits this, the game is going to end this turn, we'll win the campaign, and our boy will be fine. And now that I've said all that, you know that he's going to miss the shot. This means the avatar isn't ruptured, and that really sucks, but the stock does still cause it to teleport away. So at least we've moved it out of that horrible position, and we then send the ghost in to use its last point of focus, which will, of course, destroy it. And interestingly, as the ghost disappears, it causes the Vengeance Resistance Order to activate. So the rest of the team is enjoying some free stat buffs, and we didn't even have to lose anyone to get them. Even the mind-controlled Viper gets the buff, and that's just wild to me. So we continue attacking the Avatar, but pretty soon it teleports back near Jonas, and it's somehow in an even worse position now. Teleporting really seems to be the bane of our existence on this mission. So we use a couple of bonded actions to get Milo right across the map where he's close enough that he can use a combat protocol. The downside to doing this is that Gerard now has no actions left to relocate away from the mutons surrounding her. She had to give all her actions to Milo, so she may be about to enter the Shadow Realm, all because Jonas can't make a 4 out of 5 chance. Sometimes life just isn't fair, is it? Once the Avatar's in a better position for us, I use Void Conduit with Petrova, and this is possibly the first time that I've ever used this ability in my life, but it's going to prevent the Avatar teleporting anywhere else. Now we've got it stuck there, but it's kind of too little too late. We don't have too many soldiers with actions left, and the Avatar does survive until the enemy turn on a pittance of HP. But a pittance is all that it takes for the thing to survive and the game to continue to the next turn. None of this would be happening if Jonas had just made that shot. But because he didn't, he meets his very deserved end as the aliens surround him and rip him to pieces. I guess it sucks to suck, doesn't it? By the time the mutons near Gerard get to act, I think shackling has kicked in on the AI because these things are just running around in circles. They're not interested in doing any damage to us. So our Reaper ends up being totally fine. It turns out the only one to pay the price for Jonas's incompetence was Jonas himself, and I'm honestly okay with that. So back on our turn, Petrova runs in and she lands the fatal blow on the third Avatar. Just like that, we've beaten XCOM 2 using only mandatory research. Ironically, I don't get awarded the Who Needs Tigan achievement, I guess because the special ammo counts as an upgrade, but honestly it's fine. I think the challenge that I just completed here is far more impressive than that achievement. And as we get to the end screen, check out the soldiers lost here. It tells us that the number is 50. Now that seems way too high, so I did go back and I did check the barracks. We had 21 soldiers fallen in this run, and I didn't include some of the lower leveled losses in the video. I am trying to make these vids shorter, but it never seems to work. I've always just got too much to say, I guess. Anyway, yeah, 21, not even close to 50. And as far as the run goes, I gotta say, apart from some of the pretty annoying jank that we got in this one, this run was a lot of fun. It was really nice not doing a solo class run. I still enjoy solo class runs, but it's nice just to mix it up and keep things a bit fresh. If you enjoyed it too, please consider doing the usual things of liking, commenting, and subscribing. It really helps out me and the channel. You can also support with a Patreon subscription or a YouTube membership, and you'll get early access to videos just like this one. The link to both of those is in the description if you're interested. Beyond that, I'm done for the day. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great day.